Awesome. So welcome. I'm Alexis. So this show is kind of about like my relationship with cars. I've always kind of had like this love for like design and cars, but I've never owned one, and I've just learned how to learn how to drive within like the last like maybe like 2 3 years. But I've been driving on and off. But one of those things that I've noticed with just like kind of being a passenger all my life is like your life is a little bit slower and it's a little bit more communal, and you also like there's a lot of like in between times. So a lot of this show deals with those in between times. So this mural is like a dream car of mine. It's a 1964 Ford Galaxy. It's a really compact, like I think it's one of like the first like motorcycle, I mean not muscle cars that was made for like the middle class. But it's a really interesting car too because like it comes from this my favorite era of like Hanna-Barbera cartoons. So if there was like a little thing I did on my social media, like kind of dealing with all these cartoons, like such as like Speed Racer and um, Hong Kong Phooey, and then and just like the Flintstones, and these are things that I was just like watching and ingesting, but while like ingesting hip hop and ingesting like rock and roll and stuff like that too. So to kind of just move on to like these other paintings, so like I kind of do this thing where I collect a lot of like family photos and like memorabilia and like family lore, and like kind of like use them as placeholders in my painting. So it could be that family member, but it also stands for like relationships and like these little things that we don't really talk about like when we're growing up, or just like those like little in between times. So like this is my little sister Amanda. She's not here right now. She's at Texas State, but this is like when we were in the back of a car, like going to Mexico when we were traveling. I kind of stole this pic of her, but it also kind of reminds me of like this relationship of being in the back seat. It's called window seat, and like kind of like imagining like hypotheticals, like what your life is going to be in the future and things as such. And then moving on to the next one is like it's a cacophony of like all types of images, like especially these two. They're there's this really interesting article that Life magazine did like back in like I think the 70s, and it talked about this motorcycle gang that was in not gang group, but this motorcycle group in Romulus, Michigan, and they were called Rare Breed. And I like tried so hard to find like all this like information about them, and that's the crazy things about like these histories. Like sometimes they're not recorded, so they become like these like hypothetical places like of third space. So they're kind of about like how like the black community might like show up in ways that we don't usually see them in television, such as motorcycle clubs. So I just always had this like kind of fantasy of like having motorcycles, and just I mean, and like I always like joke with my friends, like I'm a kid that likes to go vroom vroom, but I don't go vroom, like 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 I like my slow pace. I like to like kind of take life easy, but like there is like this side of me that I always wanted to explore, like life in the fast lane. But the center painting too kind of comes from that, like the basis of it is that photos that came from Life magazine, but also it's like an old picture of like my uncle Tootie. Like he was a character and like had like all these like kind of strange stories that like I learned when I got older were not like true, but it was like this interesting thing of like thinking about your reality and like making your reality what it is. And then like the car in there is a Chevy Laguna, so like my dad owns a Chevy Laguna, and it's like kind of like this thing that we kind of share. I think that's like kind of enlightened my love for cars. Like the Dream Cruise is a big thing in Detroit. It happens in September. Woodward gets like basically shut down, and everybody like takes their classic cars out. And it's also this moment of like I don't know, like this bonding with both my dads, because like I have both amazing dads that like have just been in my life and like kind of nourished me and like kind of like told me that it's going to be okay when I'm like overly emotional. So it's like this car becomes like a like a holder of like blackness, but also like love, but also like care. But it's like this muscle car, something that you don't really expect. It's like, oh, this is my toy, but this thing carries me places, and it carries me through space and time, and even just how design is like that too. But yeah, and then the painting right behind you, "Want to Ride," is it's like a rendition. I tried it like once, and then this is like the second version, and this one was like successful. It's a corner piece, and it's the interior of a car. It's like a very abstracted form of a car, and it's from one of my favorite movies called Love the Hard Way. It's got Adrian Brody in it, and I like watched it. I think when I was like around 15, and like you remember when Comcast had those like movies, but they did not give you like a picture or nothing; it just gave you a description. So I just remember being like bored in my grandma's house one day, and I watched this movie, and I've watched it ever since. So like I kind of know like every part of it, but there's one part where Adrian Brody and like the other characters like talking, and it kind of reminded me of like these like nights of like driving back home with my dad or my mom, and like how like the soft glow of like that corner store and like Cam's food would like be lit, and like I remember it being like very just gorgeous, and I remember even just like how the street lights will illuminate the trees around it, because like the one thing about Michigan, like we're known to be industrial, but it's a very like tree rich city. It's like it's very picturesque, you know. So thinking about that and thinking about like, oh, okay, like this neighborhood that I like kind of like had like my growing pains in, and like I would walk to that store, I would get like potato chips, like it would just that was like the place to meet at when growing up. So and like to know that that place is like now like defunct, it's not open, but the Cam's Chinese food place is still open is like very just like interesting to me. But it's like also this time in my life that I really value because it taught me a lot, but it's also like this time where like I really reference a lot because it taught me about color. It taught me about like being a sightseer and like kind of imagining something outside of your parameters, such as a car. So yeah, that's it.
Any questions for Alexis? All right.
Easy one first.
So I'm entranced by uncle, cousin, his sunglasses.
Huh?
His sunglasses.
Oh, the sunglasses, yeah.
Yes. Tell us more about them.
So it becomes like a so it's again like I'm a big cartoon head. Like I love like watching cartoons and stuff, and I love anime. So like it kind of reference like a bunch of animes, but with one like singular object. But then also too, I love like angles and fragmentation when it comes to painting. So thinking about like, okay, how do I make this composition like interesting, but also like memory? Because like the thing about memory, you don't really like remember all of it. You just remember fragments of it. So then you're just like filling in the holes of it. But yeah, that's what it's referencing. It's referencing the specific episode I'm referencing is when Squirtle like in like Ash caught Squirtle the Squirtle squad, and they were like all like big and bad, and then like Squirtle was just like, all right, cool, like you can catch me. But it's also like references like that very like I think like even like Speed Racers like it was his brother, but like in the whole like television show like it was like, oh, that's not his brother, but it was his brother. But like he wore glasses like that, and then this like there's so many coming in mind like Sailor Moon's like this the love interest of Sailor Moon that was like the guy that would like hide in the dark, like he wore glasses like that. But it's just like this thing that happens in anime where like, oh, okay, like it's like a person that's cloaked, and are they a villain, are they not? It's like kind of like this thing that kind of challenges it, but it's also this thing that says like, okay, like you're entering a hypothetical place. Like a lot of this stuff, it's not real. It's based off of truth, but it's not real.
Can you please tell us about how you approach painting directly on the gallery wall? Was that because you wanted to try a really big scale,
Yeah.
or was there something else at play?
Uh, I kind of look at painting as play. So like, it comes from a very like, I'm like, you probably can't tell, but I'm a pretty melancholy type of person, and like drawing is like one of those things that like kind of makes me incredibly happy and like I love to do. So when like, there was another idea that I had, and I was just like, okay, that's not going to work out. So what else am I going to do? And then I was like looking at this drawing of this card that I make all the time, and I was like, oh, I'm going to make this mural. And I don't know, like those 3 days, I really needed those 3 days to just kind of like decompress and de-stress. So like literally just became like my like almost like my lifeline for a little bit. So yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Hey, Alexis, how
Hey,
are you?
man.
Um, Great work. Thanks for sharing your work and your
Thanks.
thoughts on your work. It's fantastic. Can you speak to the collage elements you use in your work
Hmm.
and, um, yeah, just about the objects or why and how
Hmm.
you use them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it becomes like as a painting teacher, like it's like it becomes incredibly easy like to render things and like make sure it's perfect and like, oh, okay, this is like real. So the collage elements is like to kind of screw that up because like when you put something like as like flat with something that's like rendered, it becomes flat in itself. And I really find that relationship interesting. And like I don't know, it's also like I kind of like to think that I'm like this person that's like screwing with painting because I love painting history and like then I always tell my students I'm like you're messing with like 400 years of like painting, and so how do we do that? So we figure out a new language because that's what it is. Painting is a language. It's color theory. It's space. It's also it's line. It's like all these things that works together to like make this image, and it's just pigment. That's all it is. So I really like to just like mess with that so that the collage element becomes like this idea, or it even becomes like almost like a leather jacket, like patches on a leather jacket, and those patches tell you like, oh, okay, I'm part of this crew, or I'm like a part of this group. Like I remember when I was younger, the heart with the eyes on it, the calm de garçon patches, and I remember we were just super obsessed with those. And like if you had that patch, you were part of an elite like part of coolness, and mine was fake. But I was just like, yeah, like, like I'm a part of this crew. And so yeah, it becomes like almost like that reminder of like I don't know, just like what you do when you're younger. It's just like I want to be desperately a part of something, but I don't want to be a part of anything. So yeah, I don't know if that explains it. Cool.
Alexis, you mentioned like play
Mhm.
and like your language.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I've always responded to in your work is this way in which you like create this something that's so illusory, and then you'll just like come on top of it with like a swipe or a mark or
Mhm.
like a very kind of rudimentary shape.
Mhm.
And I'm very interested in that. And could you talk about your decision making there?
Yeah. Um. Like I think it's like I think there's something about B that's like very like I want to be punk rock so bad, but I know I'm just such a soft individual. Like I was like I want to go out there. I'm like yeah, like and I'm just like oh no. So I think that's like my way of like kind of like going against things. Like okay, like and it's kind of funny to me because it's painting. It's like oh okay, like you're in your studio and you're arguing with yourself and it becomes like and then something just becomes too perfect and you're just like this is not me, so how do I like put myself back in there because like you get obsessed with it, you're like ooh I want to render that cheek so bad and then you're like oh but this doesn't look like what I want it to look like anymore, so you kind of get frustrated. That's what I call like painting's friends, like like sometimes like you get in a little scuffle and you're just like I can't deal with you no more. And then like years goes by and it comes back and you're like, damn, like I'm happy that we did this. But yeah, that's kind of how I describe it. Cool.
So I see these big, beautiful, chunky stars,
Yes.
and also congratulations, and I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
And happy birthday.
Thank you. Oh my God.
So I'm just kind of wondering, like, what if there's some symbolism behind the stars, or just
Yeah.
like what made you choose them and their color? Like,
Mhm.
also their kind of funky shape. Like, I'd love if you just spoke about everything that they mean to you.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think it goes back to like the patches and stuff like that, like how patches can be just like irregular and just like kind of form like another definition of itself. I don't know. I think when I was drawing when I was younger, like I drew a lot of like thunderbolts and stars and stuff like that. Cause it's just like yeah, like like this is embarrassing, but like like you're really just trying to go against the grain, and you're like you're not really going against the grain of anything. You think you are. So I don't know. Like I think and like I don't know. I like animated things too. I like things that are very just like odd shaped and, you know, not perfect, you know. So yeah, I think in general it's like that. And it's like one of that like very simple visceral things that you do when you're a kid. Like what do you learn how to draw first? A flower. Like I know like for me it was a ladybug, you know, and like that's why I still like draw ladybugs around things and stuff like that. And flowers and stuff, yeah. Like it's like a very just visceral act of just like I don't know, I guess inviting that person that like you lost connection to, your child, you know, like and I think I stay connected to that kid all the time. So yeah. No problem. Anytime. Yeah.
Can you just talk about like the different mediums you used
Mm-hmm.
in each painting?
Cool. Yeah. So it's exclusively oil paint. This is house paint. Um, I'm not money bags yet, so you know. But yeah. Yeah. So that's like house paint, oil paint, embroidery floss, acrylic yarn, oil pastel, oil stick. So it's like all in the oil family. Yeah, that's about it for like these groups. Oh, gouache, soft pastel, and gouache crayon. But yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
okay. Thank you. Thank you. Cool.